I wish I had been born a vegan, and then maybe it would be easier. September 22nd, 2019. Episode number 15, Barney and Clyde. 4 segments today. Doing it for the children or to them. Making children and teens into the spokespeople for climate alarmism. Our fight or not. What the proper U.S. response or non-response to the attack on Saudi Arabian oil production is. Also a word about John Bolton's talk at the Gatestone Institute luncheon after he was fired as National Security Advisor. Old news. Whither Julian Assange? He's kind of fallen off the radar, but he was the subject of a dust-up on a television squawk fest the other day, and so we'll look at that. Journalism's death rattle. The New York Times failed attempt to revive the Kavanaugh smear. So, that's what we've got going today.
Welcome back to the Libation Station.
Welcome back to the Libation Station, where fortnightly and forthrightly, your favorite libertarian and your favorite conservative take a look at things on the nation's cultural, economic, and foreign policy plate.
Yep. And have a delicious beverage here at the Libation Station.
Oh, this is some good stuff.
So this is Virgil's Zero Sugar Root Beer. This is the first time I've had it.
Oh, it's good.
We were looking for something bracing. We usually have coffee, but we kind of, I'm already caffeinated for the day.
Me too.
And I wasn't really feeling drinking anything adult libation like this early in the day.
Oh, this is, same here. This is just the right amount of pep.
I'm not against day drinking, but I just don't have it in me today.
You're right, yeah. It's a beautiful last full day of summer. Yeah. And so, a bike ride might be in order later.
It's beautiful.
Root beer always reminds me of sassafras tea. Did you ever brew up sassafras tea as a kid?
Not as a kid, no, but I've harvested sassafras just for fun.
At summer camp and also growing up at a nearby lake, we used to make little homemade, set up fires in the creek bed and get some sassafras roots and brew it up.
It grows wild all over the place around here. Oh, yeah. And apparently, in 12 years, it, along with the rest of all of nature, is going to be extinct.
I know, yeah. We better drink our sassafras because, according to...
Kiss your sassafras goodbye if we don't...
All right, yeah. We're going to start with the immediate subject at hand and expand outward, but the immediate subject at hand here, this first segment, is doing it for the children or to them. And this is just beyond the pale what the climate alarmists, this climate strike thing. For one thing, how much of a strike is it when most of the schools around the world are letting these kids out, and in some cases encouraging them, pour out into the street, empty our classrooms and go out and strike for climate change.
But what are they doing? What actual steps are they taking? Are they not using energy during that time?
You bet. And this brings up a point, and we've discussed this on this program before. Hypocrisy per se generally doesn't get me very excited. Oh, that person's a big hypocrite. For instance, I won't digress long here, but for instance, if somebody goes around saying, promiscuity is bad and people ought to have fealty to one partner and be committed to them and maybe even be religious about it. It's a sin to have sex any other way or something. And then it's found out that they're absolute. They engage in sybaritic behavior all over the place. They have a track record of dalliances, a mile long. And that person. Well, that doesn't mean that what they said, does not tell us a thing about whether or not it's good to have fealty to one partner.
Right.
And there's a number of examples like that. But one where hypocrisy really is important to point up is this whole environmental thing, because, which I'm getting back to your question. These people obviously do not believe it, or they would not take private jets to their little environmental powwows in exotic resorts and dine on caviar and drink expensive booze and then fly back home. Bernie Sanders would not use the excuse that I can't walk to California to campaign for president. and so forth. Yeah.
But what am I'm supposed to walk to work. I mean, it's only 3 miles, but
exactly. And so, but you got one or two really great clips about this. But
yeah.
Okay.
I think this is the one you're talking about.
Okay.
Let me just pull this one up here and.
What is it? Why are you here today?
To help the planet. We have been polluting the earth for years, and we might actually die in a few years if we don't stop this.
We understand this is an issue of not only climate change, but also of race, of equity, and honestly, it breaks my heart.
Okay, dude.
Yeah.
Broken heart. And I'm with him. I don't like racial inequity, and I don't like damage to the earth and pollution and stuff like that. It's just like, what specifically are you talking about, and what measures are you taking to actually mitigate that, and how do you align that with human freedom?
Exactly. There was another one, though, and I'm trying to find in my notes a gal behind a microphone just screaming, an 11-year-old gal who...
here it is, right here.
Okay, all right. Very good. Yes, let's...
Oh, yes, this is a good one.
If you love freedom and decency and dignity and common sense, prepare to get real mad.
Hi, my name is Rosie Clemensko. I'm 11 years old. We are here because our parents trashed the planet, and it's up to our generation to save it. Greta inspired me to lead walkouts at my elementary school all last spring. Because storms, floods, fires, and droughts fueled by climate change are killing people all over the globe. Our oceans are choking with trash, and the 6th mass extinction is well underway. And the government does nothing.
I'm with you there.
Our schools don't teach us, and our parents are silent. But scientists say
we got a little,
we only have 11 years left to avoid a climate catastrophe. We need to have 0 carbon emissions by 2030, when I'm 21. So I'm asking you to do 3 things. First, start Friday for the Future at your school. It's more than a walkout, though. It's a teach-in. Because what you say to your friends might be the only thing that they know about climate change. Second, climate activists need to support other social movements, too. Because any fight for justice is your fight, too. So when kids rally for gun safety or for LGBTQ+ rights, or when teachers ask for livable wages, get your butt out there and support them. And they will support you, too. It's called solidarity. Third, the November 2020 election is coming, and we need to clean out the trash. Find a candidate who is good on climate change, doesn't take oil money, and canvass for them door to door. And make sure your older siblings vote. Whose side are they on anyways? If you fight for the children by teaching them about climate change and about solidarity, if you fight for the children by demanding that politicians get us to 0 carbon emissions by 2030, if you fight for the children by getting involved in our fight to have a future, we will save the world. Are you?
Oh man, that's spooky. I mean, that as a matter of fact, that's horrifying.
Did you ever see Bill Maher's movie Religious?
I have. Yeah, as a matter of fact,
there's a kid in that movie that's about this girl's age, and he's like an evangelical preacher.
Yeah,
and he's out there preaching hellfire and brimstone, and he's basically just getting a lot of pats on the back from his parents and peers.
A kid who's not old enough at all to comprehend the study of theology or anything like that. He was fed what he's out there saying to people.
And this person here, this kid is, she's 12.
Environmentalism, climate alarmism is a religion, and you even got a system of sin, which, oh, by the way, NBC at their website had a confess your climate sins thing.
Oh my God! Oh my God, that's brilliant.
Yeah. And I'll get into that in just a second. But while we're because we started out talking about kids. Greta Thunberg, the what is she, Norwegian? I think Swedish. Okay,
yeah.
And her parents, her dad's some kind of a fairly big guy in the arts, and her mother's got a successful opera singing career. Well, then when this Thunberg, who's now 16, was about, I don't know, 10 or 11, she really got going on this climate zealotry and browbeat her parents on what they could be doing to reduce their carbon footprint and stuff. And as a result, her mother gave up a very good career as an opera singer because it would entail her flying around
Oh my God.
to perform.
Well, I have to admire that a little bit more than just yelling at me about what my actions are. If someone's actually taking action in the world.
I don't know. If it were, and maybe, I don't know, maybe this falls outside the overlap. If it were about something that's true, I might see a point.
Well, it sounds like horse crap that her, I gave up my singing career for climate change. Like, bullshit. You just didn't make it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But NBC News has on their website has a project called the Climate Confessions Project, and many of the responses appear to take the project seriously. Or tell us, where do you fall short in preventing climate change? Well, once again, it's like a religion. Confess your sins.
Yeah.
One person confessed taking flights to see their son across the country. I fly to see my son on the West Coast. I live on the East. I drive to work even though the bus is almost as fast. I often feel I have good excuses. Another person confessed, I wish I had been born a vegan and then maybe it would be easier. I can't seem to give up meat, said another. And one person, I said, I love meat, but I love the earth more. Vegan for over 4 years now. Dig me, don't I care? I mean, this whole self-congratulatory
if you love,
aspect too.
we love the earth so much.
But I love the trolls who check this out, Clyde. Others appear to have taken the opportunity to troll NBC over the project. I like my house to be 85 in the winter and 55 in the summer. Deal with it, hippies. One more. I live on Earth, where even if we achieve carbon neutrality in the first world, that's only 19.1% of the population, another stated. I don't do anything for the environment, another one said. I don't care. I'm eating bacon with breakfast this morning, and I'll have it again tomorrow. And another one submitted lyrics about loving plastic straws. I love plastic straws, and I cannot lie. As many as I can get before I die. Straight soda with apple pie. Yes, sir. I'm the guy.
Oh, my God.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's brilliant.
And back to that Thunberg. She met the other day with the most equal comrade. Does everybody know who I mean when I'm talking about the
They
most
probably
equal comrade?
don't.
Well, I got a number of terms I use, name or nicknames I've given people on my blog, Late in the Day, which long-time viewers of this podcast know what Late in the Day is. It's my blog, and I blog at least daily, sometimes more than that. And Barney Quick, Late in the Day, Google that and you'll get there. But the most equal comrade is the light worker in chief, he who would quell the rise of the seas, also known as Barack Obama, former community organizer who quickly leapfrogged through the Senate and became president of the U.S.
Yes.
And
and the statesman extraordinaire, according to the left, and
exactly.
One of the people with the most bloody hands in modern history.
Yeah, and he also there comes a point at which you've made enough money. That's one of his famous quotes. Anyway, but so this Greta, the 16-year-old Greta girl from Scandinavia, has met with and I can see that we're partners or something like that. He said to her. Anyway, but the whole thing, now back to what that gal, the last gal you,
the 11-year-old,
the 11-year-old you showed screaming into the microphone, and they also need to get with people on other causes, LBGQT whatever, and disadvantaged people or what the heck ever she said, and that is the point. This is about far more. And that's why the hypocrisy of it matters, because what these people are really after is control.
That's right.
Diminishment of our freedoms and maximization of government control. Former chief of staff to Representative Sandy from Westchester, also known as Alexandria.
We're going to have to flash up like a translation.
We'll do a
every time you drop
something,
somebody's nickname.
Yeah.
So he means AOC.
Yeah. Of course, and then there's Madam Bleach Bit and her husband Billy Jeff the Zipper. And
that's a good one. Yeah.
That's a good and so forth. But anyway, Sandy from Westchester, her former chief of staff, Saikat Chakrabarti, confessed. He said, the interesting thing about the Green New Deal is it wasn't originally a climate thing at all. We really think of it as a how do you change the entire economy thing. Mm-hmm. We're socialists.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's simple. Yeah. And how do you do that? You do that through a gigantic propaganda machine, mm-hmm. and you use the children. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean, as your sounding board. And I think it's disgusting because, my daughter just had her 10th birthday. Mm-hmm. Right, we just had her birthday party yesterday. And she lost a tooth like 2 weeks ago, right?
Okay.
And she still does the tooth fairy thing, right?
Yeah.
She's 2 years younger than this person, you know what I mean, that's shouting at us, telling us how the world works. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. This person probably just got off the tooth fairy thing themselves.
I know. I think about your kids, and I think about my own childhood, how... far and away, it was the most enchantment-filled period of my own life, and all the things I was exposed to that fired my imagination were just, so important to my formation as a person. And to have, if my parents and other adult figures in my life had been filling me with visions of apocalyptic doom, that's just rotten to do to a kid. Yeah. It's just rotten.
Well, what's good to do to your kid is to teach them how to be good stewards of the world, right? So if you think that plastic straws are bad, you think that carbon emissions are bad, right? There's probably an argument to be made there. We should probably be reducing the amount of fossil fuels that we use, right? I think market forces will do most of that. Mm-hmm. But you can teach your kid, we value veganism because of climate change. Teach your kid to do that. Teaching your kid that their best service to humanity is pointing their fingers in somebody's face and yelling at them about their behavior, and not turning inward and learning how to be a good person and a good steward of the earth is disgusting.
Yeah, and now you got some of these folks just a few years older, teens, people in their late teens, saying, "I'm not going to have any children." Well, maybe it's best.
Good, don't have any.
Exactly, yeah. People children. With your ideology not having children is actually that has some appeal to me. But just the idea that they're so scared that they've had the fear of apocalyptic doom instilled in them to that degree.
It's scary that people hate humanity so much.
That's what
throughout history, like the whole point was that we made humanity flourish. We got better. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of ugliness in history. Don't get me wrong, but the whole point was that we were supposed to make the world better for people. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And now it's moving in the opposite direction. And if we're rationally self-interested, we will steward the environment because we must. Mm-hmm. And I think that the alarmism, the non-scientific alarmism, is as dangerous or more dangerous than complete and outright denial.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Cool. So we're inside the diagram.
Yeah,
on that one.
Yeah, we pretty much. Except I'm pretty well convinced from what I've read by scientists that the global climate's not in a state of crisis.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Okay, all right. Okay.
But it is in a state of change, and it's always in a state of change. That's what climate is. And
stewardship of good old conservation is a very good thing.
And I also know that I am not it's like what Scott Adams said. He's like. You know who Scott Adams is? He's the blogger who does the Dilbert cartoon. Mm-hmm. But his whole point was, I'm speaking as him, I'm not a client scientist. I don't know how to interpret science of climate data. There are reasonable arguments on both sides. When I hear them one-on-one, they sound totally reasonable, and I don't know how to parse that out. Mm-hmm. But I also know that I can say that these things aren't true and these things aren't true. Mm-hmm. And when you have lies, clear distortions on both sides of an argument, you know what I mean? Like something's up. Like it's not my fault that I don't believe you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Makes some damn sense. You know?
Very good way to put that, Clyde.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, okay. You folks are about to witness some B&C history right here. We have never really gone too far outside our Venn diagram overlap of a conservative and libertarian viewpoint, because our common starting premise from which we start is the primacy of human freedom. That human freedom is the essential condition for human well-being.
Yeah.
But libertarians and conservatives, when you get to foreign policy, are usually their views are outside that Venn diagram overlap, and such is the case today. You are probably, all of you watching are probably aware that recently drones that according to Saudi Arabian investigators looked like they were carrying weapons, Iranian-made weapons. It was first thought that they were fired by Houthi rebels from Yemen, but now it looks like that's not the case. But attacked Saudi oil production facilities and knocked out half of Saudi Arabia's oil production.
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah,
what do you think? Tell me.
The looming question, of course, is should there be a U.S. response of any kind?
Why should there be? Well, I think that there's some U.S. response necessary.
Okay. We're energy independent enough in the United States that we don't depend on Saudi Arabian oil anymore.
Right.
And
that's one of my major questions is why don't they believe that it was the Houthi rebels in Yemen that launched the attack when they claimed credit for it, and when it just seems so Occam's razor would dictate that that's probably the case.
Okay, and that is a mystery. I don't know the answer to that. The Saudis are asserting that they've determined that it didn't come from there, though.
But don't you think that
maybe they have
there's like this
an agenda for saying that or something?
Well, there's like the American Saudi oil pipeline, and I don't mean like a physical pipeline, but the supply chain.
You bet, yeah.
And then there's like the Iranian, Syrian, Russian pipeline.
And part of this goes back to the split within Islam between Shia Islam and Sunni Islam.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Which goes back to who was going to be the caliph of the religion once Muhammad died and all that. Yeah.
And so the Iranians, I mean, surely they're backing the Yemenis in some degree.
Oh yeah.
Probably financially, but like that country's under blockade by Saudi Arabia. Like, how in the world would they be getting weapons and stuff like that into that country?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. So, but irregardless, I guess that's a dumb word, regardless, I got some questions I put down about the U.S. relationship with Saudi Arabia that I just don't understand. Okay. So, you mentioned energy independence, right?
Yeah.
Due to fracking, and a lot of other strategies, but mostly fracking. We're oil independent because of fracking. We're energy independent and a net exporter because of that, and a lot of other like some green initiatives and other things like that. We've got a lot of different ways we produce energy now. That being said, why are we dependent on their supply chain still? Why do we vilify Iran over Saudi Arabia? Why is it that Iran, who has their own supply chain, when they defend their interests, we consider them this rogue enemy? Of course, they're going to defend their interests. If we're the pro-democracy, zealots that we say that we are, if that's what our intentions in the Middle East are, why do we support an absolute monarchy, like a family dictatorship in Saudi Arabia, and not Iran, which at least has the framework of a representative republic? Now, they've got huge religious oversight in their government, and it's not something that I would want to live under.
Yeah.
But it's a lot closer to what we do than what Saudi Arabia has. So, and why?
Saudi Arabia is. I kind of thought about this the other day. You can kind of make a dichotomy. There seems like there's two kinds of allies that we have: allies of values and allies of interests.
Mm-hmm.
We're allies with Great Britain because we share common values with them.
Mm-hmm.
Really, most English, all English, Australia and Canada, and even some of the others, South Korea and Japan and so forth. We share enough values with them that's why we're allied with them. Then there are allies with whom we share strategic interests. It's not the most savory alliance in the world. Saudi Arabia, yeah, to try to pass through their customs with the Bible and see what kind of trouble you get into. I mean, there are people that they chop people's hands off for shoplifting. They don't let women drive.
The second largest non-Muslim minority in Iran are Christians. It's one of the more tolerant places for.
I don't know if I'd say that. They also, I mean. Homosexuals get their hands tied behind their back and pushed off of tall buildings, and
I'm not saying that there's always this push in media to paint one side as all good and pure and perfect, and one side as dark and sinister and terrible.
But this really
and I'm not going to live in Iran or Saudi Arabia any damn time soon.
Yeah, but the
excuse me.
The 1979 revolution in Iran, when Ayatollah Khomeini came to power, they immediately declared us to be the great Satan, and Israel the little Satan, and made a point of saying that the West must be obliterated and the whole world turned into a theocracy. They're in a sense, they're more from a foreign policy perspective. They're more menacing than Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia just wants to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But Iran is the world's chief sponsor of terrorism.
How do you get that figure though? Like, I mean, a lot of when you think about 9/11, for example, those guys all came from Egypt and Saudi Arabia.
You bet, that's true. But consider all the terrorist acts that happen within the Middle East, and both Hamas, which subjects southern Israel to a barrage of rockets pretty much daily, and Hezbollah up on the northern border with Israel, Lebanon and Israel, are both Iranian proxies.
Sure, and that's clearly true. Like they've definitely supported terrorism. But one thing I wonder, especially when it comes to the conflict in Yemen, is I'm trying to figure out why this damn thing exists. What's going on? And I know that there's a civil war, and that there was an authoritarian government, and the rebels try to overthrow this government, but then that's where I sort of have lost. In media, we start talking about the actual battles and the actual struggles, and should the U.S. intervene? But I can't find any more context on it than that. And it seems like the rebels aren't necessarily good guys, but they're definitely better than the authoritarian regime that was there before.
Yeah, it's hard to find good guys in the Middle East.
Right. It's hard to find good governments anywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's easy to find good people,
Mm-hmm.
but why aren't we supporting Yemen in this crisis? They're being starved to death. They're being bombed. You know what I mean? Like, if we're going to be helping anyone, why aren't we helping them? And the Iranians are, and so why are we mad at the Iranians for helping these people who are being persecuted by this gigantically powerful nation of Saudi Arabia?
Okay, valid point. But consider some recent developments. The Iranians recently destroyed a $120 million American aerial surveillance drone that was operating above international waters. There have been seizing of some oil tankers and so forth. And when the drone thing happened, Trump, and which kind of segues us into something else I want to make sure that we take a moment to discuss. Trump was ready to go minutes away from ordering a response.
I think this is one of Trump's finest moments.
Okay, and he backed off the last second. He says, I think there's going to be a lot of collateral damage, and I'm not going to do this.
I agree with him 100%. I think he made a calculated, I think he made a calm, rational, measured decision. Okay. Which isn't really his MO. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's media distortion or if that's really he's just a, if he's just a lunatic sometimes. Yeah. But, and I'm not a Trump fan necessarily, but I will give him a shout out when he does things that I think are right. Yeah. And that was right. Okay. And it wasn't saying Iran is off the hook, but sending in troops and killing people over this robot that got gunned down is a slanted response. Okay. It's an unwarranted. We can't unring the bell if we go in there with troops and we start airstrikes. Yeah, that's true. And it's not worth it for $150 million. Okay, and
weather balloon.
But that was probably in goddamn Iranian airspace. You know what I mean?
You think so?
Well, okay. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. And I don't know what their perception of it is. Yeah. I just know that our news and our government lies to us constantly. And if they say they gunned down this drone and it was in international waters, my first suspicion is bullshit. It was probably spying on them. Yeah. You know what I mean? And if those hillbillies around here says the drone comes in my yard, I'm going to shoot it down. You know what I mean? I'm that guy. Okay. You know what I mean? If the drone comes in my yard, or at least close enough to it, I'm going to shoot it down. Yeah. And I don't blame him. Yeah.
Senator Lindsey Graham sees things differently. He says that was probably perceived as a sign of weakness by Iran and prompted them to become more aggressive with this attack on the.
Well, Lindsey Graham is a lunatic, and he
has been kind of all over the map.
He would soak the world in blood. This man, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. These are the types of guys who they just, I don't know if they just got picked on a lot in school, and now that they have power, they just want to kill everybody. But I just I could imagine Lindsey Graham just being one of those like school shooters. Just,
How did you feel about the Iran nuclear deal back in the Obama years?
I think it was one of Obama's only good moves.
Seriously?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, we're outside the Venn diagram. I think, and what I was leading up to is, we talked about Lindsey Graham's take on it. It's probably why Trump fired John Bolton as his national security advisor. Yeah. Bolton was saying, you can't be stopping this thing at the last minute.
And Trump's sort of like, watch me, mofo, you know?
Yeah, which is, the way...
I'm going to do what I want.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like Cartman as president.
So, if you're not too keen on Lindsey Graham, I have a feeling that you're really not too keen on John Bolton.
I'm not keen on John Bolton. Okay. But I don't know enough about John Bolton, pre-Trump administration.
Well, he's always... He's I think you saw... I put on Facebook a piece by... I think it was John Podhoretz at... he's the editor of Commentary, but this was in some other... journal, but called The Integrity of John Bolton. Love him or hate him, he's always been who he is today. Yeah. His worldview was formed as a teen, and it boils down to a few things. You don't appease rogue regimes or rogue groups. Okay. If somebody declares you their enemy, take them at their word, and then which doesn't mean bomb them to smithereens necessarily.
I'm pretty sure that's what John Bolton had in mind.
You squeeze them with sanctions.
Yeah, but that doesn't do anything. We squeeze so many nations with sanctions, and all that happens is the people there suffer. It's just like, look at sanctions on Venezuela. Look at sanctions on Iran. You know what I mean? The government, the elites in their ivory towers, they're not hurting. You know what I mean? The ivory towers are still there. Yeah. They're still eating steak. You know what I mean? The people are suffering because they
Yeah.
can't do basic economic transactions with the rest of the world. And if the primacy uh, is of human freedom is the most important thing to consider, then the people on the ground need to be free to transact the way that they deem.
Spoken like a good libertarian. The idea that yeah, foster trade between people on the ground, person to person, and business to business.
Mhm.
Economic exchange. Ron Paul's big on that. He's said that for years, that that's the way Iran ought to be. Um,
I think it should be that way with Iran, and I think it would be. I think it would be much better if our economic Venn diagrams overlapped more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that there's a huge market there.
their government hates us so much that they would use it as the opportunity
Of
for
course they hate us.
espionage. And
Of course they hate us.
and
We
intellectual-
have gone in. We have been invited to dinner, and we've thrown the table upside down more than once in their country. Why would they not hate us? What reason could they possibly have not to hate us?
Well, this particular regime, it's rooted in their Shia ideology, though. I mean, the Ayatollah Khomeini, during his years in exile in Paris, was writing screeds about how the West, is on a spiritual level the enemy of the true religion, Shia Islam, and that's what they're still determined. But
and when we pour when
Yeah.
we pour all the firepower that we have and we turn the desert into glass, it's not really making our argument at that the West
Yeah.
is evolved and peaceful. It's not really making that claim.
Yeah. You probably then
supported.
didn't. John Bolton, about 3 days after he was fired, he spoke at a luncheon hosted at a Manhattan restaurant by the Gatestone Institute, which is a foreign policy think tank. And one attendee said he ripped Trump without using his name several times. He also, Bolton also said more than once that Trump's failure to respond to the Iranian attack on an American drone set the stage for the Islamic Republic's aggression in recent months. He also spoke about Venezuela and noting that they've got thousands and thousands of Cuban troops there, and if those troops left, the regime would collapse overnight.
I mean, if we wanted to focus on any of these places, I mean, obviously we could annihilate any of them that we really wanted to.
He said that it's folly. These summits that we've had, and he never mentioned Trump by name, but he said it's folly for the U.S. to be doing these summits with Kim, and that they lead nowhere. That all when you meet with when you invite the leaders of the Taliban to Camp David, when you meet Kim in Hanoi, when you meet at the sidelines of a UN function with Iranian officials, all they're interested in is getting their sanctions lifted. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they should want to get their sanctions lifted, and I think that this is one of Trump's stronger attributes is, saying, I'll meet with them.
Yeah.
I think that was a real folly of Obama and Hillary Clinton saying, no, we'll never meet with the Kim dynasty. It's like, well, no, go over and talk to the guy, and let's maybe we can work this shit out.
Well,
it's time. You know what I mean? It's time to work it out. In Afghanistan, if we had the Taliban over, and Scott Horton from antiwar.com was making this point that if you had the president of Afghanistan and you had the Taliban and you've got Trump, and Trump is just like, hey, we're getting out of here. You guys are going to have to figure it out, right? So let's make a deal. You know what I mean? I think we got to get out.
Okay. Which we might as well go ahead and get to the essence here. I noticed you mentioned Obama, and who we agree was a socialist, but you also think of him as a warmonger president.
I absolutely do. Yeah.
The antiwar.com people, Lou Rockwell, Paul Craig Roberts, et al. They believe that America has a self-perpetuating war machine
Mhm.
that, regardless of whether a given administration is Democratic or Republican,
Right.
self-perpetuates, and,
Yeah.
and that it's a revolving door between defense think tanks and defense contractors and the government, and
Yeah.
and that it just go and that it's probably the most harmful thing the United States does to itself.
I think it is.
Okay.
Well, at least it's really tough on our presence in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Because we're just like government tries to meddle in the economy.
Yeah.
When government meddles in foreign affairs, we tend to make things worse. I
Yeah.
mean, like look at how much problems we're having with Iran right now. It's like, okay, well, we took out Saddam. We have a check and a balance, right? And we took out the check.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now you've got all this more support for Iran in the
Yeah.
region.
Yeah.
We emboldened them. We made them more powerful.
And to the extent that I can see validity in your viewpoint, it is that, and like you used the term earlier, you can't, how'd you put it?
Unring the bell.
Got
Got that from
Tom
Thomas Sowell.
Okay, there's no going back 4 seconds in time once you've thwacked the hornet's nest.
That's right.
You enter into war. You've started making history. They'll be talking about the havoc you wreaked.
You're getting stung.
in history books
Yeah.
years from now, because the whole world will impact everything.
And if you're George W. Bush,
Yeah.
you know, you're just going to go and you're going to paint your paintings and.
But there are some people. It's interesting because some paleoconservatives write for anti-war.
Yeah.
Pat Buchanan, who has argued that it really wasn't necessary for us to enter into World War II. That Hitler was just trying to unify the German-speaking peoples of Europe.
I've heard some very compelling arguments to never having gotten into World War I or II. I'm not sold on them, but they've given me pause for thought.
Okay. Well, anyway, there you have it, folks. We've stepped outside the Venn
Speaking
diagram.
of, so in the Iran stuff, this could segue pretty nicely, I think, because the WikiLeaks had published some emails from the king of Saudi Arabia saying basically that, like, what, you know, it used to be this situation where we had this balance, and you know, you've given all this territory over to Iranian interests.
Now, what we're talking about, we're entering into a segment we do from time to time here on BNC called Old News, where we look at something that's kind of fallen off the radar screen, but still has, there are good reasons to discuss
every
it.
now and then it flares up a little bit, but people have kind of lost interest in the stories.
Right. And Julian Assange, it's been a while since anybody really made a big deal of him. He's languishing in custody in the UK at this point. He was in Ecuador for several years.
Well, he was in the Ecuadorian embassy in the UK, so he's technically on. He's inside the UK, but on Ecuadorian soil because he's at the embassy.
Right. But he's quite a case as a person. He was born in 1971, and his mother, his parents separated before he was even born, and then she married an actor, Brett Assange, from whom he gets his name, who ran a small theater company, and they divorced when he was about 10, and then he just kind of lived a nomadic life, had a nomadic upbringing all around Australia. By the time he was 16, he began hacking under the name Mendax, and he and two friends formed a hacking group called the International Subversives. I think they kind of just thought this stuff was fun, to hack into, see what kind of government secrets they could do. Much later, when he was with a group he helped found called WikiLeaks, he was supplying, or he was getting classified documents from a U.S. Army guy named Bradley Manning, who, once again, outside the Venn diagram, I'm going to assume you are comfortable with calling this person Chelsea Manning now. He's still Bradley to me. But anyway,
I mean, I think a person should be free to do what they want to do, and
I'm not going to indulge this delusion.
But anyway, it just depends on if I'm forced to. If someone says you must,
then
you have to call, you have to call her Chelsea, and then I don't have to do shit. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But
Thank you.
If that person came to me and said, "Hello, I'm Chelsea," I'd be like, "Nice to meet you, Chelsea."
Yeah, but the most significant stuff that Manning was supplying. Assange with had to do with a Baghdad airstrike, July 12th, 2007.
Yeah.
And
a video of our helicopter shooting two journalists and a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, but the Captain Jack Hanslick of the U.S. Central Command stated that the airstrike video gives you a limited perspective. It only tells you a portion of the activity that happened that day. Just watching that video, people cannot understand the complex battles that occurred. You're seeing a very narrow picture of the event.
I'm sure that's the case. However, if I think journalism is under attack, and I think it's in a weird place because a lot of journalists they no longer want to break the big stories. They get their orders from the state, and then they report what they're told to report.
Okay.
I think. Don't you think that?
Yeah, I do.
And WikiLeaks, I'm not going to surmise that they're a perfect organization, but they're at least brave, and they have published. I haven't seen anyone claim that anything that they published was untrue.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people have had issues with the fact that they published classified information and that they've published stuff that made some people look bad, like Hillary Clinton. But nothing that they published so far, as far as I can tell, was untrue.
Yeah.
And we're getting a lot of non-truth from our media. And I think we need a resource that will say, okay, we will publish we'll publish whatever that's true, and if we have to go to jail, we'll go to jail.
Yeah, well, and I think Julian Assange's lasting significance is going to be he embodies the question of is dissemination of classified information. Does it constitute journalism or treasonous activity? Yeah. And that's a question that goes clear back to Daniel Ellsberg and the Pentagon Papers, 1971, and yeah.
Well, Julian Assange isn't an American though, so he's not committing treason against America.
Okay, all right. What do we got left in the way of time?
We're at 48 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But there you have it, folks.
A little more outside the diagram, but I think there's some inward stuff there too.
Absolutely. And
I'm not trying to make the argument that Assange isn't a garbage human. He very well might be. I don't know.
Yeah. He's quite a character at the very least. Yeah. You look at his life. But the antiwar.com editor-in-chief, Lou Rockwell, he says, this is rooted in my libertarian principles. He says, and which gets back to something you said a few minutes ago. I can't remember exactly how you worded it, but that every time the United States engages in armed conflict, it diminishes the individual's sovereignty vis-a-vis the state.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of Lou Rockwell. Well, not a big fan of Lou Rockwell, but I've heard him on several shows, and I've really enjoyed what he's had to say.
Well, and there was another guy, the late Joseph Sabran, was part of that crowd too, and he, prior to that, and which is interesting, a couple of these guys started out as conservatives. Paul Craig Roberts served in the Reagan administration and so forth. Joseph Sabran started out writing for, and I think he was even on the editorial staff of National Review. But once he started going this other direction, he and Buckley had a major falling out. Yeah. And then Sabran came down with a serious illness and eventually died. But he and Buckley, they met privately and made amends. Yeah. But that was just important to them as fellow Catholics and so forth to get right with each other.
I'm glad that happened. And I think, personally, people should do that. And there's, you and I, for
Yeah,
example, like
exactly,
we're going to exist outside of this opinions,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And
Right.
that's fine with me.
Yeah.
You can have your opinion.
Sure.
I celebrate it. But,
Yeah.
I think that if we apply the principles of human freedom,
Mhm.
and if we apply them,
Yeah.
unilaterally, that you have to come up
Yeah.
with, you have to be anti-initiation of force.
Okay. Well, it's certainly true on the internal level. We've discussed before about agents of the state, the government having a monopoly on the legitimate use of force, and all these nice little things, and like environmental measures, and identity politics, speech codes, and all that stuff. That all sounds so very nice, but at the end of the day, government can whip out its guns and make you comply.
That's right. Yeah. And is that legitimate?
And there you have it. BNC viewers.
Yeah, we gotta come up with a good nickname
Yeah.
for viewers and listeners.
Yeah.
Barnstormers or something, maybe.
Yeah.
All right. So one
what's
more
our-
old news, actually.
Yeah. It's old, but it's new because of this goofy thing that
New news, I guess.
Yeah. The segment is journalism's death rattle, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of.
That's a good
content.
segue too.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah. Yeah, it is because we were talking about journalism. The Times, the New York Times, tried to revive the Brett Kavanaugh smear, which was totally shown to be a smear, and especially recently, where Christine Blasey Ford's attorney said that yes, part of our motivation was to put an asterisk by his name, so he'd be forever tainted, no matter how long he's on the Supreme Court and whatever important decisions he's part of and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then there was, she at least had the appearance of credibility. This Deborah Ramirez, who was another gal who came forward and said that Brett Kavanaugh had acted sexually inappropriate toward her, was just completely shown to, her completely without any basis. But this New York Times piece said that there was someone new who came along to substantiate Ramirez's charges. But they started, listen to how they paint. I'm going to read a little bit from Roger Kimball, writing at Spectator USA. Roger Kimball is editor-in-chief of the New Criterion, very good cultural observation magazine. But I'll kind of try to indicate by tone of voice where he's putting things in parentheses. But Ms. Ramirez grew up in a split-level ranch house. Oh, too bad.
Mm-hmm.
In working-class Shelton, Connecticut, perhaps best known for producing the wiffle ball, and didn't drink before college. Got it. Working class, straight-laced. Her father, who is Puerto Rican, check. Before coming to Yale, bad Yale, Ms. Ramirez took pride in her parents' work ethic and enjoyed simple pleasures like swimming in their above-ground pool. Above ground.
Oh, man. She really got it
Definitely
tough.
not part of the
Cabana
set. And she and her parents took out loans to pay for Yale. And she got work-study jobs on campus, serving food in the dining halls and cleaning dorm rooms before class reunions. Unlike snobs like Brett Kavanaugh, you see. It goes on and talks about how she felt like a real outsider.
Lived a very privileged life.
Yeah, actually. These seem like first world problems to me. But then the guy, this Max Stier person, upon whom the Times hangs its whole premise, Max Stier claimed that he saw Mr. Kavanaugh with his pants down at a different drunken dorm party where friends pushed his penis into the hands of a female student. And Mr. Stier runs a nonprofit organization in Washington.
Do that.
Once again, so now back to Roger Kimball. So he runs a nonprofit. Therefore, bingo, a brownie point. 2, Stier notified senators and the FBI, and they declined to investigate. The implication that they were too biased for Kavanaugh to do so, but the truth is that the allegation was too flimsy to merit investigation. 3, Stier won't confirm the story publicly, but 4 eager beavers like Pogrebin and Kelly, the authors of the New York Times piece, corroborated the story with 2 officials. Oh, 2 officials? Impressive. Who communicated with him. And Stier was one of Clinton's defense attorneys. I think, that's an important piece that was left out of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then, the whole thing started to just really fall apart. Toward the end of the book, The Education of Brett Kavanaugh, an Investigation, that's the book that Kelly and Pogrebin are writing. This article was kind of a teaser about that. Blasey Ford's lifelong friend, Leland Kaiser, who is a liberal Democrat, by the way, did not believe her friend's tale of sexual assault at a party that they both supposedly attended. Kaiser was named by Ford as a witness, one of 4 who denied any knowledge of the event in question. Not only that, she was bullied about the matter. The reporters say that some of Blasey Ford's friends had grown frustrated with Kaiser. Her comments about the alleged Kavanaugh incident had been too limited, and some of them felt that it did not help their friend's case. Surely, given what a close friend like Kaiser had been saying, a friend that close, she could have said more to substantiate Ford's testimony and general veracity, even though she could not corroborate more of Ford's specific memories. A group text was formed with such friends as Cheryl Amate and Lulu Gonella, discussing how to get her to say something more. An unnamed man on the text, suggested that they defame her as an addict because she'd been in recovery, that Kaiser had been in recovery for some time. Amate answered, Leland is a stumbling block. Leland Kaiser later said, I was told behind the scenes that certain things could be spread about me if I didn't comply. This may be outside our Venn diagram too. A lot of this hint goes back to the lefties are scared to death that if a case comes before the Supreme Court that gives it an opportunity to overturn Roe v. Wade, that a majority will do so. Yeah, that's what this boils down to. That's why they're scared to death.
It's Roe v. Wade is the big one, but it's just
the majority now, and that it might get bigger.
Yeah, it's just that you've got conservative leaning justices, and if we get too many of them, they're going to wreak havoc on progressive ideas. Yeah,
but the lengths they'll go to get this done, and
it's really disgusting to watch that side play the role of, or play the part of the evidence-based, fact-based, science-based people of reason and logic. Yeah. And when they throw it out the window at every possible turn, and it's like, who gives a damn about any of this? You know what I mean? Like you can't substantiate any of it. You know what I mean? And to their own, like you said, if you just let people talk, they'll just tell you the truth. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they're just saying out loud, well, we're just going to smear this person. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, they don't say with untruths, but they say, and I think that they may have
sources close to the subject or unnamed sources.
That's right. You say things that sound true, or you say things as though they're true, and you keep repeating them. They become truth in the minds of the public, But I kind of feel like maybe the right invited this a little bit with their rejection of Merrick Garland. They sort of stepped outside of protocol and were really nasty about confirming a legitimately appointed judge, and I think the left said, okay, fine, you want to play dirty, we can play dirty, and they will play dirty.
Yeah. As the slogan that's going around now said, "New rules, bitch."
Right.
Yeah. What do you folks think? Weigh in on all this. Yeah. What are we doing? How are we doing?
Well, it's probably time. It's 59. It's time to wrap it up.
Okay. Well, listen. This for anybody who's new to this. This is episode 15. So there's probably a lot of long-time viewers, but if you're new to this, this is a taste of what we do. Yeah. And we convene fortnightly and forthrightly here at the Libation Station and peruse these kinds of things. And
so if you like it, feel free to send us any feedback that you want to, barneyandclydeshow@gmail.com. You can support us at patreon.com/barneyandclyde. Yes. You can go to facebook.com/barneyandclydeshow and get the links and comment there.
Mhm.
If you have suggestions of how we can improve it, by all means, do so. But the biggest way that you can help is to share the episodes. Share them on
Yes.
Facebook, share them on Twitter, share them on whatever you
YouTube,
use.
yeah, and all this goes back to YouTube. We've got a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So, thanks for viewing. And we're just greatly gratified that there has been an uptick in viewership in recent episodes. And
Yeah, I think
until next fortnight, stay free.
Stay free.